Hi, welcome to our lightning talk on data literacy and Globe student research projects. My name is Tracy Ostrom and I'm with UC Berkeley Department of Chemistry.
And I'm Svetlana Darche from West Ed, and we're with the West Ed UC Berkeley Globe Partnership.
And we have a partnership page on the Globe website, but we also have another page because we are with Globe Mission Earth, and you can go to the Globe Mission Earth page and learn more about what we're involved with. But today we're here to talk about data literacy and student research projects. So let's just jump in and talk about that. There's two things we want to focus on today: the what and why of data literacy and student research projects, and connecting the project rubric to data literacy. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about the what of data literacy. And this quote comes from Kristen Hunter-Thompson, who is a data literacy expert. She works as a guest speaker at Rutgers University, and she defines data literacy as the ability to collect, organize, visualize, analyze, interpret, and share data, not just for yourself, but for others to use and understand. And so what I want you to do for these next few minutes is focus on data literacy in terms of collecting, organizing, visualizing, analyzing, interpreting, and sharing data. We're going to use these terms a little bit later on in the presentation. The why of data literacy is as important as the what of data literacy. Because when we talk about student research projects, we're asking them not just to do the science and the data collection, but we're asking them to make it meaningful for them. So we're in essence asking them to make the connections to their own cultures, their own communities. And data is all around our culture and communities. And it's really driving some of the things that we're doing now in terms of COVID-19. We're seeing data literacy in our politics, in policy making and practices. So most importantly, when we talk about data literacy, it's a connection to STEM learning. So one thing I want to make a plug for is data literacy in terms of NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards. And so with the science and engineering practices of NGSS, we see data literacy sprinkled in all over, whether it's visualizations or graphical displays or data analysis, data interpretation. Basically, when we're asking our students to do these student research projects, we're really asking them to perform in terms of these science and engineering practices. So right now what I want to do is make a really explicit connection to data literacy in terms of the Globe practices, in terms of the Globe Student Research Project. And you can see those data literacy practices again on the left-hand side. So when we ask students to collect data, we're asking them to do it through protocols and observation in the Observer app. When we ask them to organize their data, it's through the Globe data sheets or data sheets they've created. The visualization piece of data literacy is students having to create their own graphs or their own images of their data, or using the Globe visualization tool. The data analysis part is all about the telling a story part, and this is something the students really get excited about when they present their research to scientists at the SRS. The interpretation data is really relating the data back to their research question. And finally, the sharing of data comes into play when they discuss their projects with scientists at the Student Research Symposium or the IVSS, the International Virtual Student Symposium. So I wanted to just point out two real specific pieces of data literacy analysis and interpretation as it relates to the Globe poster template. Within the Globe poster template, we actually have student sentence starters. So on the left-hand side are the sentence starters for data analysis, and on the right-hand side is our sentence starters for interpretation. And as you can see, we're really honing in on the students' ability to communicate data in terms of the analysis piece to show us what they learned or what they see in their data, and on the interpretation piece as they relate their data to their conclusion or their question. So I'm going to turn it over to Svetlana, who's going to talk a little bit about data literacy in terms of the project rubric.
Thanks, Tracy. As Tracy just described, the posters are really the final product of the research projects. And so we're just going to take a couple of minutes to look at how you can assess the projects using a comprehensive rubric. So with Globe Mission Earth, we actually developed a rubric previously that homed in on 4 of the NGSS practices, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. And we wanted, in particular, because the focus was in our partnership and was on data literacy, we really wanted to spotlight the data literacy component in each of those practices. So we had 2 purposes for doing this. One, to, as I mentioned, to spotlight data literacy in assessment to help support instruction and the teachers' facilitation of their students' research projects. And we wanted to support the students themselves in preparing those projects in a way that reflects growing data literacy. So I'm going to do a quick run through of each of the rows. You'll see that there were actually 8 rows because we took a couple of the NGSS practices and we broke them apart. So the first row was related to content knowledge, and here's just a snapshot of what the full text in the rubric actually consists of. So in content knowledge, you want to make sure that the content is connected to the data collection plan. In asking questions, we want to make sure that the questions are evidence-based, that they're going to involve a collection of data. In planning investigations, we want to make sure that the students plan their investigations in a way that's designed to generate evidence. In carrying out investigations, we're focused on the methods to keep the data organized. Analyzing data involves data collected and the visuals or the visualizations that tell the story that's based on evidence. In interpretation of data and drawing conclusions, we want to make sure that the conclusions are supported by the data and that the data actually answers the research questions. And in communication and presentation, we want to make sure that the data and the visuals effectively convey the conclusions and the next steps. So back to Tracy.
So basically, we hope we've given you some ideas of how data literacy connects to student research projects. We're talking about enhancing students' scientific skills through data collection, organization, visualization, analysis, and interpretation, and sharing of their work with us as scientists. So thank you for being here.